Ridgewood High had always been a place where things stayed the same. The faces were familiar, the routines predictable, and the rules, though unspoken, were clear to everyone. You didn't step out of line, and you certainly didn't cross Owen Grant. Everyone knew that. So when Andre Morgan walked through the front doors of Ridgewood High, the air shifted just slightly, not enough for most to notice, but enough for those who understood the social order to sense that something was about to change. Andre didn't look like much of a threat. Tall but lean, quiet with an air of distance, he seemed like the type who preferred to blend in rather than stand out. But there was something else, something in the way he carried himself that felt off. Not awkward, not timid, just different. Andre's family had just moved to Ridgewood from Atlanta, Georgia. His mother had taken a job at the local hospital, and Andre didn't have much choice but to tag along. Ridgewood wasn't exactly known for its diversity, and Andre, a black teenager in a predominantly white school, knew he'd be noticed. But Andre wasn't worried. He'd grown up in tough neighborhoods, and being the outsider was nothing new to him. He figured he'd keep his head down, stay out of trouble, and ride out the school year quietly. But at Ridgewood High, keeping your head down didn't always mean you were safe. From the moment Andre entered his first class, he felt the stares. Some curious, some cautious, but most judgmental. Whispered comments followed him through the hallways, murmurs that never quite reached his ears, but were loud enough to make their intentions clear. Andre ignored it. He had no interest in making friends or enemies. At lunch, he found an empty table in the corner, away from the buzzing groups of students that crowded the cafeteria. He quietly unwrapped his sandwich, pretending not to notice the eyes that flickered his way. That's when Owen Grant noticed him. Owen wasn't just popular, he was Ridgewood High's self-proclaimed king. As the star quarterback and son of the football coach, he had built an empire of fear and control. He didn't just bully, he ruled. Owen didn't tolerate outsiders, especially ones who didn't fall in line. Andre's silence, his lack of fear, and the way he seemed completely uninterested in Owen's presence was enough to make him a target. Sitting at his usual table surrounded by his loyal followers, Ryan, Connor, Matt, and Chase, Owen watched Andre closely. He wasn't like the other new kids. Most of them tried to impress Owen, or at least avoid him. But Andre didn't do either. He simply didn't care. That kid's got an attitude, Ryan muttered, glancing over at Andre. Nah, Owen said with a cold smile. He's just waiting for someone to teach him the rules. And in that moment, the decision was made. Andre Morgan had unknowingly stepped into a game he hadn't asked to play, and Owen Grant was about to make sure he regretted it. Owen Grant didn't become the most feared name at Ridgewood High by accident. He built that reputation, brick by brick. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest guy in school, but he knew how to control people. His power wasn't just about fists, it was about fear. Owen understood how to break people down mentally, how to make them feel small before he ever needed to raise a hand. He thrived on manipulation, twisting rumors into weapons and turning the school's social structure into his own twisted game. Owen had been ruling Ridgewood High since his freshman year. His father, Coach Grant, had been at the school for over 2 decades and held massive influence, both on the field and off. Being the coach's son gave Owen an unfair advantage, and he knew it. Teachers looked the other way when Owen crossed the line. Other parents, eager to keep their kids in coach Grant's good graces, rarely complained. It was an unspoken rule at Ridgewood High. If Owen Grant targeted you, no one was going to save you. But Owen didn't do it alone. He had his circle, a tight-knit group of enforcers who helped him maintain control. Ryan Davis was Owen's right-hand man, sharp-tongued and cruel. He didn't throw punches, but his words cut deeper than most fists could. He knew how to humiliate people in public without even raising his voice. Connor Mitchell was the gossip king, the one who twisted the truth just enough to poison people's reputations. His rumors were like wildfire, spreading quickly and turning students into outcasts before they even knew what had happened. Matt Douglas was the muscle, a towering figure with fists like sledgehammers. He wasn't particularly smart, but he didn't need to be. Owen pointed, and Matt acted. No questions, no hesitation. And then there was Chase Walker, quiet, cold, and dangerous in his silence. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was always a threat. People feared Chase the most because no one ever knew what he was thinking. Together, they made Ridgewood High their kingdom. They controlled the cafeteria, the hallways, the parking lot. Even the teachers seemed to tiptoe around them. If Owen didn't like you, you didn't get to breathe easy at Ridgewood High. But Owen didn't just target anyone. He liked his victims to be easy to control. The quiet ones, the loners, the kids who wouldn't fight back. He enjoyed the power, the control. He'd start slow, small insults, accidental bumps in the hallway, rumors whispered just loud enough for his victim to hear. Then he'd escalate, destroyed lockers, stolen books, and sometimes worse. The goal was to make you feel powerless, to crush your confidence so completely that even teachers stopped noticing you. And if you fought back, that's when things got dangerous. Owen didn't tolerate defiance. Anyone who challenged him paid for it. He'd humiliate you in front of the whole school, destroy your reputation, and if that wasn't enough, well, that's what Matt's fists were for. By the time Owen was done with you, no one wanted to stand in your corner. But Andre Morgan was different. Owen didn't know what it was about him. But something about Andre's calm demeanor irritated him. The new kid wasn't scared, and that wasn't normal. Most new students spent their first week at Ridgewood High, figuring out who to avoid. But Andre didn't seem to care about the social order at all. He kept to himself, never flinched under Owen's watchful eye, and most importantly, he didn't look nervous. That silence? That calmness? It wasn't fear, and that's what made Owen furious. "You think you're too good for us?" Owen muttered under his breath one afternoon, watching Andre from across the cafeteria. Andre sat alone, quietly reading a book while the rest of the cafeteria hummed with noise. Owen wasn't used to being ignored, and that's exactly what Andre was doing. "That kid's weird," Connor whispered. "Doesn't talk to anyone. Like, at all. I heard he got expelled from his old school," Ryan added with a smirk. "Maybe he thinks staying quiet will keep him out of trouble. Or maybe," Owen said darkly, "he thinks he's better than us." That was all it took. The moment Owen felt like someone was challenging his control, even without words, it became personal. Over the next few days, Owen's group started to tighten their grip on Andre. It began with small things. Shoulder checks in the hallway, whispered insults as Andre walked past. Ryan made sure rumors started spreading. "Andre's hiding something. He got in trouble at his last school. I heard he's got a violent streak, you should stay away from him." But Andre didn't react. No anger, no fear, nothing. He just kept walking. "That's it?" Owen grunted one afternoon after Andre calmly walked away from yet another round of insults. "He's just gonna keep ignoring us? He'll crack," Ryan said with a grin. "They always do." But deep down, Owen wasn't so sure. Something about Andre felt off. The way he moved, the way he stayed calm, it didn't feel like fear. It felt like control. And Owen couldn't stand that. "He's gonna learn," Owen muttered, his eyes narrowing. "He's gonna learn that Ridgewood doesn't have room for people like him." And in that moment, Owen decided, Andre Morgan wasn't just going to be another victim. He was going to be an example. A warning. The new kid didn't know it yet. But his days of walking Ridgewood High without fear were about to come to an end. For Owen Grant, Ridgewood High was a game, a twisted chessboard where he controlled the pieces. And every move he made was calculated to keep him on top. And right now, his target was Andre Morgan. But Andre wasn't playing the game, and that's what frustrated Owen the most. Days turned into weeks, and Andre still refused to react. No matter what Owen and his crew did, Andre stayed calm, frustratingly calm. Shoulder bumps in the hallway? Andre barely stumbled. Whispered insults? He didn't even blink. Books knocked from his hands? Andre would quietly pick them up, brush off the dirt, and walk away without so much as a glance in their direction. To Owen, that wasn't strength. That was defiance. "He's just doing this to make us look weak," Owen growled one afternoon. "He thinks if he ignores us long enough, we'll back off." "He's bluffing," Ryan added, sneering. "I bet he's terrified inside." But Owen wasn't convinced. Andre's silence wasn't the silence of someone scared. It was too steady, too controlled. It felt like Andre knew something they didn't. That's when Owen decided to change tactics. If Andre wouldn't react to insults or intimidation, Owen would attack him another way, by isolating him. Rumors began spreading like wildfire. Ryan and Connor made sure of that. "He's a thief," Ryan whispered to a group of freshmen. I heard he got kicked out of his old school for stealing. He's violent, Connor told the basketball team. Almost put a kid in the hospital back in Atlanta. Dude's a total psycho, Matt added. You don't want to mess with him. The whispers crawled through Ridgewood High like smoke. Subtle but suffocating. Soon, students stopped sitting near Andre in the cafeteria. Teachers began watching him a little closer during class. Even the janitor seemed to hesitate before mopping the floor near his locker. Andre wasn't just being bullied anymore, he was being erased. But still, Andre didn't react. He kept walking those halls like nothing had changed, like the storm brewing around him was nothing more than background noise. That calmness, that quiet confidence, made Owen furious. We're gonna make him crack, Owen growled one morning, slamming his locker shut. He can't keep acting like this forever. But Connor, who had been observing Andre closely, shook his head. I don't know, man. Something's weird about him. He's not scared, it's like he's waiting for something. Yeah, Owen muttered darkly, he's waiting to lose. That same afternoon, Owen's crew took things further. Andre's locker was left wide open, his textbooks soaked in water, the ink running down the pages in thick black streaks. His backpack was torn apart, papers and notebooks scattered across the floor like trash. When Andre arrived and saw the mess, the crowd around him went silent, waiting for his reaction. But Andre didn't flinch. He calmly knelt down, gathered his ruined books, and placed them back in his locker, one by one, like none of it mattered. You see that? Ryan whispered, wide-eyed. He's crazy. No one stays that calm. That's not calm, Owen muttered through clenched teeth. That's disrespect. The next day, they tried again. Andre's gym bag was stolen from the locker room. Found hours later in the trash can behind the cafeteria. Torn open with his clothes soaked in milk. When Andre found it, he didn't get angry. He didn't say a word. He just picked it up, stuffed his belongings back inside, and walked away. By now, Ridgewood High was watching closely. People were confused, some impressed, others nervous. No one understood how Andre kept his cool. It's not normal, Connor muttered after school. People like that, they snap. Good, Owen sneered. I hope he does. The next morning, Andre walked into class to find his seat taken, not by another student, but by his own chair, which had been bolted to the floor in the middle of the hallway overnight. On top of it, taped to the seat, was a photo of Andre, crudely edited with devil horns and a caption that read, "Don't feed the animals." For a moment, the hallway was dead silent. Even Owen expected some kind of reaction. A scowl, a glare, something. Instead, Andre calmly walked over, tore the photo off the chair, crumpled it into a ball, and dropped it into the trash. Without a word, he returned to the classroom and sat at an empty desk near the back. Owen stood there, fists clenched. He's not ignoring us, Owen growled under his breath. He's mocking us. But deep down, Owen knew that wasn't true. Andre wasn't mocking anyone. He simply didn't care. And that terrified Owen more than anything. Because the longer Andre refused to break, the more Ridgewood High began to change. Students who once followed Owen's lead began watching Andre with quiet respect. He hadn't thrown a punch, hadn't shouted back, yet somehow, he seemed stronger than anyone else in the school. Owen knew it was only a matter of time before his reputation, his control, started to crumble. He's not better than me, Owen muttered to himself. He's just pretending. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his mind. For the first time in his life, Owen wasn't sure if he was in control anymore. For weeks, Owen Grant had pushed Andre Morgan to the brink, taunts, vandalism, and calculated humiliation. Yet no matter what Owen and his crew did, Andre refused to break. He didn't flinch. He didn't complain. He didn't even seem angry. But Owen didn't know one thing: Andre wasn't ignoring him out of weakness. He was holding back out of choice. And that choice was about to change. It started like any other Friday. Ridgewood High bustled with its usual chaos, students laughing in the halls, locker doors slamming, teachers shouting last-minute reminders before the weekend. Andre walked his usual path, silent as always, backpack slung over one shoulder, gaze fixed ahead. But this time, Owen was waiting. You're getting real comfortable here, Owen sneered as Andre passed by. His voice was loud, sharp, meant to draw attention. Andre didn't stop walking. Hey, Owen barked. I'm talking to you. Still, Andre ignored him. That's when Owen shoved him. Hard. The impact knocked Andre's bag from his shoulder, spilling his books across the floor. Students froze. Conversations died. Eyes turned toward the confrontation. A silent crowd forming like storm clouds rolling in. Andre bent down, calmly gathering his things. Yeah, Owen chuckled darkly. Pick 'em up. That's all you're good for. Then came the mistake. As Andre reached for his notebook, Owen's foot shot out, stomping down hard on the pages, grinding his heel in for good measure. Andre stopped. For a long second, he stayed perfectly still, one hand still gripping his notebook, fingers tightening just slightly. You've got a problem? Owen taunted, his voice low. Andre exhaled slowly, then rose to his feet. He stood eye to eye with Owen, not with anger, but with something far worse. Cold, controlled focus. I've been trying to be patient, Andre said quietly. His voice was calm, almost casual, but something about it felt dangerous. But I think you're out of chances. Owen's smirk faltered, just slightly. You think you scare me? He sneered. I don't need to, Andre replied. For the first time, Andre's eyes locked onto Owen's, and in that moment, Owen felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Doubt. You're all talk, Owen shot back. You're not gonna do anything. Andre turned to leave, but Owen grabbed his arm. The moment Owen's fingers closed around Andre's wrist, everything changed. Andre twisted his arm free, fast, precise, and before Owen could react, Andre's hand shot forward, slamming into Owen's chest and sending him stumbling back into a row of lockers. The metal banged loudly as Owen's back hit, his breath forced from his lungs in a sharp gasp. For a second, Owen just stared, wide-eyed, shocked. You think you're tough? Owen coughed, pushing himself upright. You're dead, Morgan. He lunged. But Andre was faster. With a sharp sidestep, Andre dodged the punch and grabbed Owen's arm mid-swing. In one fluid motion, Andre twisted Owen's wrist, forcing his arm behind his back and shoving him hard against the lockers. The impact shook the metal, rattling doors up and down the row. Let go. Owen snarled, struggling against Andre's grip. Andre didn't budge. His grip tightened, just enough to make Owen feel the pressure. I don't want this, Andre warned quietly. But if you touch me again, I promise you won't like what happens next. Owen gritted his teeth, furious, but there was something else in his eyes now. Fear. Andre released him and stepped back. We're done here. For a second, no one moved. The students who had gathered stared in stunned silence. No one had ever seen Owen lose control like this. And certainly not to someone like Andre. You're dead, Owen growled under his breath as Andre walked away. You're dead, but Andre didn't look back. By lunchtime, the entire school was buzzing. Did you hear what happened? He slammed Owen against the lockers. I thought Andre didn't fight? The rumors spread like wildfire. Some exaggerated the story, claiming Andre had knocked Owen unconscious, or that Owen had begged for mercy. None of it was true. But one thing was certain, Owen Grant wasn't the king of Ridgewood High anymore. That afternoon, Owen sat silently in the cafeteria, fists clenched, staring at Andre from across the room. Ryan leaned in close. What are we gonna do? Owen didn't answer right away. His pride had been wounded, not just by the fight, but by the way Andre had humiliated him. Andre hadn't beaten him with rage or violence. He had done it with precision, with control. That was what made it worse. I don't care how calm he looks, Owen muttered finally. I'm gonna break him. Ryan hesitated. You sure about that? Owen's gaze narrowed. Oh yeah, he said darkly. This isn't over. The sting of defeat burned inside Owen Grant like a wildfire that refused to die. Every time he walked the halls of Ridgewood High, he felt it. The whispers, the stares, the barely hidden smirks. For years, Owen had controlled this school. He was the one people feared, the one who dictated who was cool and who was invisible. But now they were laughing at him. And the worst part? Andre didn't seem to care. He still walked the halls the same way, silent, calm, as if nothing had changed. That calmness was what angered Owen the most. Andre hadn't just embarrassed him. He'd ignored him. Owen wasn't about to let that stand. The next morning, Owen sat with Ryan and Connor at their usual spot in the cafeteria. His eyes never left Andre, who sat alone by the window, quietly eating his lunch like nothing in the world bothered him. "I'm not gonna fight him," Owen muttered. "That's what he wants." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you back down?" "I'm not backing down," Owen growled. "I'm gonna make sure everyone sees him for what he really is." Ryan smirked. "Oh yeah? And what's that?" "A coward." It started small. Subtle. The first rumors were just whispers, barely noticeable. "I heard Andre's scared of Owen now." "Yeah, he only won because Owen wasn't ready. Bet he's too chicken to fight him face to face." Owen didn't need to shout it himself. He just planted the idea. And like poison, the gossip spread through Ridgewood High. Next came the accusations. Andre found his locker covered in spray-painted words, "Coward." His books went missing from his backpack. Once, when Andre walked into the bathroom, a group of boys hurried out, leaving behind graffiti on the mirror, "Morgan the Mouse." Andre didn't react. He didn't lash out or even bother to erase the words. He just cleaned his things quietly and kept moving forward. But that only made things worse. To the students at Ridgewood High, silence didn't look like strength, it looked like weakness. The more Andre refused to respond, the louder the whispers became. Soon, people stopped just watching Owen. They started joining in. "You heard about Andre?" a junior muttered to her friend. "Yeah. Owen said he's scared to show up at the next football game." "Figures. Guess he's not so tough after all." The tipping point came at the Friday night game. The Ridgewood Hawks football stadium was packed, a sea of cheering students, proud parents, and buzzing excitement. Owen had planned this moment carefully, and everything was about to fall into place. Andre arrived just as the game was starting, making his way toward a corner of the bleachers, hoping to avoid the crowd. He barely sat down before he heard the first chant. "Coward. C-O-W-A-R-D, C-O-W-A-R-D." Andre's head snapped toward the student section. It started with just a few voices, but the sound swelled fast. The chant spread like wildfire, rolling across the bleachers. Students were clapping now. Some laughing. Some just joining in to feel like part of the crowd. Owen stood at the front of the section, grinning like a king reclaiming his throne. Andre didn't move. He sat still, eyes fixed straight ahead, ignoring the noise, refusing to give Owen what he wanted. But Owen wasn't finished yet. "Hey, Morgan." Owen's voice rang out above the noise. He held up a cheap plastic wrestling belt, the kind kids won at arcade games. He held it high like a trophy. "You want this?" Owen sneered. "Come take it." The crowd erupted in laughter. Andre clenched his fists. He felt it boiling inside him, the frustration, the anger, the weight of weeks of humiliation. He could get up, storm across the bleachers, and put Owen back in his place. But he knew that's exactly what Owen wanted. So Andre stood, collected his things, and walked out. The crowd cheered as though Owen had won something. He laughed, shaking the belt above his head like he'd just claimed victory. But deep down, Owen knew something was wrong. Andre wasn't running away. He was walking away, calm, steady, and completely unfazed. And for some reason, that scared Owen more than anything else. By Monday morning, the entire school was talking. "Did you see him leave?" He didn't even say anything. "Yeah, but did you see Owen's face?" Andre knew what people were saying, that he was scared, that he'd back down. But none of that mattered to him. He wasn't done. Owen thought he'd broken Andre. But what he didn't know was that Andre wasn't staying silent because he was weak. He was staying silent because he was patient. And the storm that was coming would leave Owen Grant wishing he had never started this fight. Owen Grant thought he'd won. For weeks, he had poisoned Ridgewood High against Andre, turning whispers into rumors, rumors into chants, and chants into a full-scale humiliation campaign. Andre had been called a coward, mocked in front of the whole school, and forced to leave the football game like he didn't belong. But Owen didn't realize that silence isn't always surrender. For Andre, silence was strategy. The confrontation finally came one chilly Friday afternoon. School had just ended, and students poured out of the building in clusters of laughter and conversation. But as Andre walked through the main hallway, he knew something was different. The crowd wasn't moving toward the buses, they were lingering. buzzing with energy like they knew something big was about to happen. "Yo, Morgan." Owen's voice rang out from the top of the stairs. He stood with his arms crossed, flanked by Ryan and Connor. Andre stopped. He didn't respond. "You're done hiding." Owen's grin widened. "No more excuses. No more sneaking off like a coward." The crowd shifted, murmurs rising like a tide. Students pressed closer, circling the scene like spectators at a prize fight. "Fight me," Owen challenged, his voice louder now. "Right here. Right now." Andre didn't move. He stared at Owen, calm, steady, as if Owen's words meant nothing. "You too scared?" Owen taunted. "That's what I thought. Just a coward pretending to be tough." The crowd murmured again, but this time some faces showed doubt. Owen had turned the whole school against Andre, but there was something unsettling about how calm Andre remained. "I don't fight idiots," Andre finally said, his voice low but firm. The crowd gasped. Owen's grin vanished. "Then I'll make you," he snarled, storming down the steps. Before Andre could react, Owen lunged. He threw a wild punch, but Andre sidestepped easily, causing Owen to stumble. Laughter rippled through the crowd. "You sure you want to do this?" Andre said quietly. Owen growled, his pride stinging. "I'll show you who's in charge." He charged again, fists flying. But Andre wasn't there to meet him. He shifted, swift and controlled, dodging every blow like he knew Owen's moves before they happened. "Stand still," Owen barked, frustration boiling over. Andre didn't. He moved like water, smooth and calm, letting Owen's rage burn itself out. Every missed swing drained Owen's energy. Sweat dripped down his face as he panted, fists trembling. Finally, Andre spoke. "You done?" Owen's face twisted with fury. He lunged one last time, but this time, Andre didn't step aside. He moved forward, meeting Owen's arm in mid-swing. With precision and speed, Andre twisted Owen's wrist in a tight lock, spun behind him, and slammed Owen to the ground with a firm but controlled motion. Owen hit the concrete hard, groaning in pain. The crowd fell silent. Andre didn't move. He stood over Owen, calm, quiet, and completely unshaken. "It's over," Andre said coldly. You think this is over?" Owen grunted, struggling to his feet. "You think you can just walk away?" Andre didn't answer. He just turned and walked through the silent crowd, his footsteps echoing against the pavement. The crowd parted like water, stepping back as Andre passed. But Owen couldn't let it end there. His bruised ego screamed for payback. With a roar of anger, he reached for a nearby trash can and hurled it toward Andre's back. Andre reacted instantly. Without turning, he sidestepped the can with effortless grace. But this time, Andre didn't just walk away. He turned back. Slowly, Owen's eyes widened. He knew he had gone too far. Andre walked back toward him, stopping only inches away. His voice was low and steady. "You want to keep pushing?" Andre's eyes locked on Owen's. "Because I promise you, you're not ready for what comes next." Owen's breath caught in his throat. For the first time, he felt something he never expected. Fear. Andre leaned closer. "Stay down," he warned. "Next time, I won't stop." Owen froze. His bravado crumbled, and he finally understood. Andre hadn't just been holding back. Andre had chosen not to break him. Andre turned and walked away once again, this time for good. The crowd erupted, not with chants or cheers, but with quiet awe. Students exchanged stunned glances, whispering to one another. No one had ever stood up to Owen Grant like that, and no one had ever done it with such complete control. From that day forward, Ridgewood High was different. Owen's power was gone. He no longer had students following him like shadows. No one laughed at his jokes. No one flinched when he walked by. He was just another face in the crowd. But Andre? Andre didn't need to gloat. He didn't walk around with pride or arrogance. He stayed quiet, calm, and focused, the same way he'd always been. Because strength isn't about proving how powerful you are. It's about knowing you don't need to. The days following the fight at Ridgewood High felt different, quieter, calmer, almost like a storm had passed. The whispers in the hallways had faded. The looks of curiosity and judgment had disappeared. And Owen Grant, once the king of the school, was no longer the center of attention. Andre didn't care about any of that. He still walked the same way he always had, head down, quiet, never seeking attention. He still sat alone at lunch, still avoided small talk in the halls, and still focused on keeping to himself. But the students at Ridgewood High had changed. It wasn't obvious at first. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic speeches. Instead, it was in the small things. The nods of respect from classmates as Andre walked past. The quiet "hey man, nice job" whispered in passing. The looks that carried something different now. Not pity, not fear, but admiration. Even the teachers had noticed. Mr. Reynolds, the history teacher who had once warned Andre about Owen's tactics, watched with quiet satisfaction. He knew Andre never wanted to be a hero. But sometimes, heroes don't get to choose their role. And Andre had earned his respect. One afternoon, about a week after the fight, Andre sat alone in the library, flipping through an old book. He liked this spot, tucked away in the corner, where no one bothered him. That's when he heard footsteps approaching. "Hey." Andre looked up. It was Mason Brooks, a quiet, skinny kid from his English class. Mason had always been one of Owen's favorite targets, frequently shoved into lockers or mocked for his stutter. "You got a minute?" Mason asked nervously, clutching his backpack straps. Andre shrugged. "Sure." Mason hesitated before speaking. I wanted to say thanks." "For what?" Andre asked. "For, you know." Mason shifted awkwardly. "For standing up to him." "I wasn't doing it for anyone," Andre said firmly. "I know," Mason said, nodding. "But it mattered, to a lot of us." Andre didn't know what to say. He had spent so much time ignoring everyone, convinced that being alone was safer. He never realized that his silence, his calm refusal to break, had meant something to others. "Anyway," Mason mumbled, stepping back, "just wanted to say that. See you around." Andre watched him leave, unsure of how to feel. Later that day, Andre passed Owen in the hallway. Owen was alone now. No Ryan, no Connor, no group following him like shadows. He stood by his locker, quietly stuffing books into his bag. For a second, Andre considered walking away, but something stopped him. "Owen." Owen flinched, turning sharply. His face tensed, like he was expecting another confrontation. "You good?" Andre asked. Owen blinked, confused. "What? You good?" Andre repeated. There was no threat in his voice, no smugness, no anger, just an honest question. Owen hesitated, unsure how to respond. Then, with a bitter smile, he shrugged. "Yeah, guess one am." "You should keep it that way," Andre said simply. Then he walked away. Behind him, Owen stood frozen, confused, embarrassed, and maybe a little relieved. Weeks passed, and Ridgewood High seemed lighter. Without Owen's reign of intimidation, students walked with more confidence. The cafeteria, once a battleground of social hierarchies, became more relaxed. Andre's name was still whispered from time to time, but not out of fear. It wasn't the legend of a fighter who dominated his enemies. Instead, it was the story of the kid who refused to break. The one who held his ground, not with violence, but with patience and control. For the first time in a long while, Andre felt at peace. But peace doesn't last forever. One evening, Andre was walking home alone when a car slowed beside him. The window rolled down, and inside sat a man in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes and a faded Ridgewood High jacket. "You Andre?" the man asked. Andre stopped. "Yeah, who's asking?" The man smiled faintly. "Name's David Grant." He paused. "I'm Owen's older brother." Andre's body tensed. "Relax," David said, holding up his hand. "I'm not here to start trouble." "What do you want?" Andre asked cautiously. David leaned against the steering wheel. "Just wanted to say, what you did back there. That took guts." Andre frowned. "I wasn't trying to prove anything." "I know," David said. "That's what makes it important." He sighed deeply. "You know, Owen's not a bad kid. Just got lost somewhere along the way." Andre didn't reply. "You kept your cool," David continued. "Didn't go looking for a fight. You didn't let him drag you down, and that's rare." For a second, David looked like he wanted to say more. But instead, he just reached into his glove compartment and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "If you're ever interested," David said, holding it out. My old coach runs a martial arts program downtown. Teaches kids like you how to sharpen what they already know, turn it into something even stronger. Andre hesitated. I'm serious, David added. What you did back there, that's strength, the real kind. Andre reached out and took the paper. Think about it, David said. You've got something special, don't waste it. Then he drove off, leaving Andre standing there in the cool evening air. For a long time, Andre just stared at the paper. He wasn't sure what his next move would be. But for the first time in his life, he believed he could make one. Because real strength isn't about fists or fear. It's about knowing who you are, and refusing to be anything less. The story of Andre at Ridgewood High carries powerful lessons about strength, resilience, and self-control, values that resonate deeply, especially with those who have witnessed life's challenges. One of the most important takeaways is that true strength doesn't come from dominance or intimidation. It comes from mastering your emotions and standing firm in your values. Andre didn't win by being the strongest physically. He won because he refused to be controlled by anger or fear. This lesson is especially relevant in everyday life. There will always be people who provoke, intimidate, or try to manipulate others to gain control. But responding with patience, calmness, and self-respect is far more powerful than retaliating with aggression. True strength is found in knowing when to act and when to walk away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. For older audiences, this lesson is particularly meaningful. Life often teaches that battles are best won not with force, but with character. Whether facing family struggles, social conflict, or personal hardships, the ability to stay calm and true to yourself is what defines real courage. Like Andre, sometimes the strongest response is simply refusing to let others dictate who you are. Andre's story reminds us that true strength lies in self-control, courage, and the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity. His journey proves that patience and resilience can triumph over cruelty and fear. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales of friendship, loyalty, and perseverance.